Today is Tuesday, January 5th, and welcome to another episode of Legal Briefs. Hi, my name is Wes Austin. I'm a lawyer trying to keep you updated on all the latest legal news. We have senators who are willing to object in writing to the electoral count that's going to take place tomorrow, January 6th, in the joint session of Congress. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is kind of an update to the last video I did. So if you haven't seen the last video, you may want to watch that so that you're not kind of lost. Because we're just going to pick up from where I left off on that one. So as you know, when I last talked to you, we had at least one House member who was going to object in writing. We didn't have any senators who were willing to object in writing. Well, since then, we have, I think, 100 House Republicans who said they're willing to object in writing, and I believe we now have up to 12 U.S. senators who said they're willing to object in writing. And as you know, it takes one member from the House and one member from the Senate to both object in writing to halt the joint session of Congress and have them go off and debate on whether the objection should be sustained and whether these electoral votes should be thrown out from a particular state. Now the senators, the first senator to say he was willing to object in writing was Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri. Then after he said that he was willing to object, Senator Ted Cruz and a group of I think 11 senators, including him, they came out and said that they were willing to object as well. Now, Senator Ted Cruz and his group, they issued a joint statement together. Now, in this joint statement, they referred to the voting in 1877, where there were allegations of fraud and voter irregularities. So that's kind of the context before we look at the joint statement from Senator Ted Cruz and his group. All right. In 1877, Congress did not ignore those allegations. Instead, Congress appointed an electoral commission consisting of 5 senators, 5 House members, and 5 Supreme Court justices to consider and resolve the disputed returns. We should follow that precedent, to wit, Congress should immediately appoint an electoral commission with full investigatory and fact-finding authority to conduct an emergency 10-day audit of the election returns in the disputed states. Accordingly, we intend to vote on January 6th to reject the electors from disputed states as not regularly given and lawfully certified, the statutory requisite, unless and until that emergency 10-day audit is completed. In that statement from Senator Ted Cruz and his group, they referred to the votes from these states of electors that were not regularly given or lawfully certified. Now, those two different pieces of language, they come from the Electoral Count Act, and those were the 2 grounds of objections that a member of Congress could use to object to certain votes. And just to refresh your memory, let's quickly look at some of the language from that. But the 2 houses concurrently may reject the vote or votes when they agree that such vote or votes have not been so regularly given by electors whose appointment has been so certified. So Senator Ted Cruz and his group say, hey, we're going to object unless you appoint this electoral commission. So, do you think that this electoral commission will be appointed? No. Why? They have no leverage. Why would they do that? One interesting note, this Electoral Count Act of 1887, this came about because of an election where there were a lot of allegations of voter fraud and voter irregularities. And then they ended up appointing this commission to determine the outcome of the election. And my understanding is that most legal scholars have said that that commission was a huge failure and a terrible thing that happened. That was not a good thing. And as a result of that happening, Congress enacted this Electoral Count Act of 1887 to avoid that happening again. So it just seems strange that they're trying to use this act as a means to go backwards and have a commission appointed, kind of like the problem that caused the whole thing in the first place. It just, I don't know, it just seems odd to me to do that. Yeah. So even though we have about 100 members from the House who say they're going to object in writing, and we have up to 12 U.S. senators who say they are going to object in writing, does that mean that we might have some electoral votes thrown out? No, I don't think so, because again, you have to have both houses support an objection. So both the House and the Senate will have to support this. The House, controlled by Democrats, they're not going to support an objection. And even the Senate, I can't imagine the Senate would support this by majority. So you have to have 51 senators to support this in order for the Senate to support this objection. We have 12 who are willing to support it in writing right now. And I would have to think that they called all of their friends in the Senate and tried to get them to say they would object in writing as well. So they might get some more votes in the Senate, but I can't imagine they're going to get to 51. But even if they did, you're going to have both houses, and you're not going to get it. So these objections are not going to be sustained. The electoral vote is going to count as the slate of electors cast them. I just don't think the outcome is going to be changed. Now, even though everybody in that joint session of Congress has already decided what they think about all this, let's just pretend that they haven't, okay? So just use your imagination, because you're really going to need one for that, but let's just pretend that they haven't decided. If we were going to argue that the slate of electors, that they were not lawfully certified, so that's why this objection is valid, that is going to be a really hard position to make, because it's my understanding that all of the state executives have already sent in the slate of electors from the legitimate state body, and those have been certified. So I don't know how. Maybe Wisconsin didn't make it, and they all made it within the safe harbor date, except for maybe Wisconsin. So I feel like even that argument, if you just pretend like you're going to listen to both sides, I just don't know how you could have won on that one. Then on, let's pretend that you're arguing that the vote was not regularly given. We've had, like 60 lawsuits about the voting procedures in the different states. I think almost all of them have been dismissed. I don't know that any of them have gotten any traction with what they're arguing. That's a lot of courtroom time, a lot of judges that have all opined on this, and they haven't gotten anything out of this not being regularly given. So even that argument, I feel like, is going to fail. And remember, we're pretending that people are even going to listen to any of this, because I think they've already all decided. But anyway, I think those are going to be really tough arguments to make given that background. So I don't think this is going anywhere. These objections, they be made in writing. They may cause the joint session to be suspended. You might have these arguments, but you're not going to have both houses supporting these objections. So the electoral votes as cast are going to be counted. All right, thank you for watching Legal Briefs. Tell your friends about it, and we'll see you next week.